Welcome to More Music Please, Quarantine Beat. We're exploring how the music industry is staying busy and keeping connected during lockdown, and also just talking about whatever. I'm your host, MK. Let's get started. On the line with me today is independent promoter Jen Daunt, who owns Dauntless Promotions. Is that all correct information, Jen?
Yes.
Okay,
I'm all of it. I'm the janitor. I'm the marketing person, the data entry. I do actually have a colleague that works with me, Karen, so I can't take all the credit, but...
Well, tell me, for those of us who are not in the music industry, tell us what an independent promoter does.
I am hired by managers, record labels, sometimes artists directly, to work a new record to radio, mainly the AAA format. I don't know if you've already discussed this on your podcast.
Not really. Let's talk about AAA.
Well, AAA started as an offshoot from AOR back in the late 80s, early 90s. Now, I didn't really start working in the industry until the late 90s, so it was established for a few years. It stands for Adult Album Alternative. It's an offshoot from AOR, which was album-oriented rock. So they wanted to take the concept, whomever they are, and they're a group of people in radio that wanted to take that concept of album focus, but focus it towards a slightly older demographic at the time. Mm-hmm. I'd say like 30s and 40s, to try to have an alternative to pop and what was ever being shoved down 14-year-old throats or ears, I should say. So, I mean, as time went on, we started focusing on singles just as much as the other formats. I don't know, for better or for worse. I mean, we still try to focus on albums and play more than one single from a record in this radio format. And it's comprised of both commercial and non-commercial stations, non-commercial including NPR, community, college-run, high school-run stations. Mm-hmm. Well, although lately, in the past few years, I feel like non-commercial stations have now dominated at the format of AAA.
Yeah. I think, my experience in AAA, and maybe this is a kind of romanticized view of it, but my experience has been that AAA stations are generally staffed by people who really love music and care about music, and it's not about, let's play what people expect to hear. It's about let's play what people should hear. Do you agree?
That's a good way of putting it. I've always compared what I do to, or compared, I guess, our community of AAA programmers and promoters. I'm one of the promoters, to a college dorm room. We're inviting you into our dorm room to listen to all the exciting music that we've found and talk about it with each other and maybe have some new discoveries. And it is about new music discovery. I bring up college dorm room because a lot of the music directors and program directors in our format were very active in the college radio scene back in the 80s and 90s. So they just took that enthusiasm and brought those ideas with them into their professional life of running non-commercial and some commercial stations. So that's why I call it a college dorm room experience. Yeah. At least that's what I was doing. I always wanted to bring in people, just friends, just say, check this out, and have you heard of this, and what have you heard, and just sharing information and discovery of new music, because in the 80s and 90s there was no Spotify or internet, so we had the radio. Mm-hmm. And it was such a source of discovery. Thankfully we've survived and continued to be viable in the Spotify world, I think, because it's about curation and people want to hear from other people about what they've discovered, why they like it. I don't know if Apple and Spotify really have the algorithms to create a human experience of
No,
choosing music.
I don't think they do. I think they do a great job. I think the algorithms can introduce you to some really interesting, unexpected stuff, but it can also be very samey. And, I use Spotify pretty much every day. I listen to it all the time, and I listen to the daily mixes they create for me, and sometimes they knock it out of the park, and sometimes I'm like, you know what, Spotify, I know why you think I would like this song, but you are way off base. And I strongly prefer like getting recommendations from friends, and I enjoyed the aspect of the job, as a radio programmer where I was talking to you and talking to other promoters and hearing firsthand what you liked about an artist and what you thought, why you thought it would work for my station or for other stations, and sometimes why you were like, you know what, I don't know if this is going to be a fit for your station, but maybe you would like it. And it's always so so fun to hear about that. So how did you get into the promotion side of things?
Well, I've always been obsessed with radio. I grew up in Southern California, just south of Los Angeles, and the Mighty 690 on AM was hugely influential to a lot of people in the music industry back in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. And then K-Rock started KROQ, and they were such an amazing source of discovery. They are now so corporately run, they've lost all of that magic. But back in the 80s, it felt like you were part of a cult.
Yeah,
it was so exciting.
Sorry to do a quick sidetrack, but I just read an article about K-Rock and what's been happening over there, and it was heartbreaking.
Yeah, and I mean, how really can a corporate outlet create that, continue to be that cool for decades? I mean, kudos that they lasted that long, but it does have to change up, and it was just about making money at that point, obviously.
It becomes very soulless, yeah, and it sounds like what happened was, they didn't care about honoring the people who had worked there for years and years, and they were making these wild swings without consulting anybody, and it really sounds like a huge bummer.
Yeah, it's not, but they are not. Most alternative commercial stations are not. They're a shadow of what they started as in the 90s, in the late 90s or early 90s. These commercial stations sounded like more professional college radio stations. I think that's where non-com and NPR music stepped in, and because they realized, we could hold on to that idea that the AOR and alternative stations of the late 80s started, and then take that to the non-commercial side where money is just a little bit more stable when you have underwriting and huge institutions that can back a radio station. They have a little bit more, and they can appeal to listeners directly from money. The non-commercial stations are just more stable financially. I mean, they can take a hit like anyone when the economy dives, but they don't just automatically start cutting people. Yeah. It's not as volatile. I feel like I'm getting off topic.
No, I was about to say, thank you for indulging me in that little sidetrack. But so I interrupted you. So you were in the LA area. You were a big radio listener, and
that's right. Radio was really good in the 80s, 70s, 80s. Oh my gosh! I guess if you want to take it back, I'm not old enough to remember the radio stations of the 70s, but I know it was such an influential thing in California. But then San Francisco and LA were first AOR stations started. Anyway, radio was so influential for me because there were always like 5 stations that were super cool and playing new music. So I became obsessed and went to San Francisco State, started working at their college radio station, met more and more like-minded people, realized it was a whole community. But there were no jobs in radio because it was so cool in the early 90s. When I graduated, there were no jobs. Everyone wanted to get into it. So I did an internship at Wyndham Hill and High Street Records. Wyndham Hill Records is a new age label, but then they had one of the first AAA focus labels called High Street Records, and that had Tim Buck 3 and the Subdudes and Patty Larkin, I don't know if any of those names would be familiar to
To
you,
me,
but
yeah. But I'm a radio person.
So early in my career, I just started working for this label that called themselves AAA, and that's how I learned what it was. They were the very first label to say, we're starting to specifically target this adults alternative audience, and that was the late 90s. Anyway, I realized I could get a job at a record label, and there was radio promotion within a record label, and that always fascinated me because the people are extremely dynamic in radio promotion. Sometimes their egos and their personalities are as big as their artists that they work with. Mm-hmm. So I was fascinated by promotion in general, and obviously with like money was flying around and tchotchkes. I wasn't doing that, but just watching it from afar was like, whoa, okay, yeah. How does that?
Are you a natural salesperson? Is that a skill that came really easily to you, or was that something you had to learn?
Do you think I'm a good salesperson? I still think I'm terrible at it because I don't close deals. That's sales. I do promotion where you just sit and talk about something a lot that you're passionate about.
I guess they're closely related.
Sales and promotion.
Yeah, they're definitely related, but they're definitely very different. I find you to be pretty convincing, and you've definitely swayed my opinion on a few songs over the years.
Have I?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I was in drama in high school, and I loved acting, and I'm a musician, and I think I like performance, and this became strangely a good way to perform and still be a shy person where no one could see me.
Yeah.
Which is radio too, right?
It's all very intertwined, which I think is why we all get along so well, at the conferences, the promoters and the radio people, because we're all basically just talking into a microphone and trying to convince people that music sounds good.
That's right, exactly. So, I realized I could work with musicians, doing radio promotion. Something I also really loved with radio promotion is I could meet the country. I'm fascinated with geography, and I realized I just was super into my job because I wanted to talk to people in North Carolina, in Kansas, in Texas, Michigan. What is it like? I think I probably secretly am can you be a geographer, but also I'm into
like social studies,
with the term of social studies.
I know what you mean. Then there is a term for
sociology.
It, that sounds about right. But I agree. I find that stuff fascinating.
People fascinate me. Yeah, and radio stations are the center of a certain culture in each city that fascinate me. So if you talk to a radio station, usually a non-commercial station, in a city, town, wherever, you're going to learn a lot about that area because radio stations are a cultural focus where they find out about events. They actually put on events. They'll tell you about the news. They have public service announcements. They're super involved in their community. So you can learn about a community really quickly by listening to a radio station or talking to the people that work there. And you can learn about everything about it. So that was another reason why radio was so fascinating. It's dynamic and fluid. It's an art form that's complete. It's always happening, and you can dip in, you can dip out. It's not like you're drawing a painting that gets put on a wall somewhere and no one gets to see it again, I guess. But
yeah, that's a very interesting take on things. I especially kind of the geopolitical, socio take on it. I hadn't really thought of it, but yeah, I also enjoy kind of hearing what people's experiences are like living in different parts of the country and what the culture is like. What are some of the observations that you've made over the years? Like, is there a distinct difference between like a programmer on the East Coast and one on the West Coast and one in the Midwest?
Yeah. Well, of course, I can only speak about it in my format and genre. Being AAA, it is singer-songwriter based, I guess, for the most part, even though we do get into some urban, some electronic, Americana, straight up rock, punk. I mean, we get into so many different
it's pretty varied,
genres. Yeah, but the difference is maybe at the core, let's say singer-songwriter versus rock. The stations in the New England area definitely have a folk and like Dylan-esque lean to them. It's hard to fully explain. When you get up to the West Coast, non-com AAA hasn't really been as successful as maybe commercial alternative. So it's a bigger band sound. I'd say the grunge sound, and that dates me to even use that term, but the Northwest sound and then the LA sound, I think about X, groundbreaking rock bands. Rock is a big deal.
Yeah.
And psych rock and a West Coast sound versus maybe the folk driven genres of the East Coast. In the Midwest, I don't know. I can hear the difference between East and West all the time. There are stations, like I think about WFUV and WXPN and MBY. There are stations that all have a similar sound. And then you get out to the West and it's KCRW, KEXP. There's more of a polished sound to them, less of the warm folky vibe.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe it sounds like Newport folk versus Coachella is kind of the difference.
Yeah.
Is that an okay way of putting it?
Yeah, that was much quicker. That's a better explanation.
No, it's your explanation, just boiled down into two festivals that hopefully everybody will know what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's wonderful. I love that take on it. So you became a promoter, and then at what point did you become your own business? When did Dauntless get founded?
I worked for a few record labels, smaller labels, Putumayo, World Music, and then the Wyndham Hill label, and even Hearts of Space, because there were no major labels in San Francisco. These were the smaller boutique labels that I could get jobs at. But I learned a lot being at boutique labels on how to run with the big guys, I guess, even though you're so small. It's a passion and a brand, and that can stand out amidst the corporate label system. So I kind of took those ideas with me when working I found out you could work records as an independent company and choose your records, not just work for a label and only work their records. So that was appealing, to be able to choose the music that you wanted to work. And I learned from an independent promoter. Her name is Susan Levin, and she had a company called Coast to Coast Promotions. And she hired me to head up her first AAA department. So we kind of helped define what that was in her company. And I eventually saw that I could do my own thing. She was starting to go more towards smooth jazz. And I wanted to go more towards indie rock, as I thought that would be part of AAA eventually, because we're all getting older. So the two sides kind of came together. Indie rock and AAA kind of became the same demographic as we got older. So anyway, I feel like I'm getting off the point. What did we?
Starting a business. When did Dauntless come into being?
Oh, I realized that I could. There are a few other people who helped me out and said, you really could even be more successful if you broke out on your own. You have enough contacts now. You know the community, because I'd been working for these other labels, and so I still met all the stations that way, and realized I could probably do this just as well on my own and have more freedom and take all the money instead of just a percentage.
Yeah,
of the money. But and he was right. I still have to thank Paul Brown, Red Hat 22, for his encouragement to start my own business, and it worked out.
Yeah,
I don't know.
You're still
I was able to keep what I was doing without having to move to New York or LA. I could live wherever.
And you've won. I mean, this is nothing that would make sense to anybody outside of AAA Radio Land, but you've won several of those Independent Promoter of the Year awards, right?
I get a couple.
Or
I guess so. I mean, yeah,
at the very least, you're always nominated.
Right. Yeah, I think that's probably more of what happens. We're such a small community that it feels a little odd, to say, because I think we kind of pass it around, because there are a good 10 of us in in the independent promotion world in AAA. There are lots of independent promotion companies in different formats that focus on top 40, urban, college. But I'm specific to AAA and NPR music.
Yeah. Well, so speaking as a AAA promoter, and we were touching on this a little bit before we started the official podcast portion of the conversation. How are things right now? How are things since COVID-19? I mean, we're finally starting to see a little bit of opening up again, but we certainly can't expect to go to any big concerts anytime soon. So what has your job looked like over the past couple months?
My job ended up getting strangely busier. I think because all my clients are available at any time. They're not traveling. Yeah. They're not going anywhere else. They're actually like keeping up with me and feeding me new records. And we're all trying to figure out, what is radio doing right now that they're not focusing on shows and venues and promoting new shows and festivals? What are new markers for new records? Is it just the street dates? Is it live streaming concerts that come up? Is that what we start to focus our promotion around? I think we're trying a lot of new ideas with remote sessions. I'm sure everyone's watched one or heard about them by now, with artists that do Zoom calls and perform a bit, or maybe through some other platform, YouTube. We're also trying to figure out if maybe people are listening so much now to radio that we should move through music a little bit faster. Should we as in the programmers, be playing more new music or more familiar music? So I think we're busier because we're trying a bunch of new things. Before, maybe you would have a song on air for 12 to 16 weeks or even longer if it's a hit. And now I wonder, are we really going to be more at like 8 to 12 weeks because we're cycling through a little faster, which is what they do in the UK. Their singles last about 8 weeks and then they move on quicker. I'm not sure for all the reasons. I'm not sure on all those reasons, but now I'm actually curious to learn why. And is that why, are their listeners more attentive? And is that why, where our listeners have been very casual, a lot of driving, a lot of listening in the car, listening in retail outlets, that's all changed now to home listening. So that might affect how we do playlists. Yeah. And so I guess that's why it's busier. Is we're reinventing the wheel that we've always, new wheels. Yeah. We're building new wheels.
This is unprecedented. We've never been in a situation like this before. So I'm sure, are some of your artist clients kind of like looking to you for ideas of like, what do you think? Like, how should I be responding to this?
Yeah, should we be doing every remote session possible, or should we start slowing down and be more careful? One thing interesting that both managers and radio stations have started to bring up is, should we really stop doing all these remote sessions so artists can start making money off of them? Because we've been giving away their performance for free for the past 2 months. Really we should be focusing on having them do less free stuff and say, we're getting paid to watch a live stream concert, and we'll have radio stations help promote that. Because a lot of the stations are feeling guilty about it and feeling badly because they know so much of an artist's income has been taken away now with venues not being able to have performances. So that's been an interesting sudden shift that more people are talking about. I've been suggesting that my artists invest in recording equipment, video equipment, very, affordable at home, so they can really start doing good sounding, good looking sessions from their house, or at least recording good audio that, maybe 1 or 2 songs could be used as a new performance. And because this is what we're doing all year. Yeah. So they should really try to sound as good as they can from their homes and home studios, and let's work towards live stream concerts that sound really good. And I think people would pay for it because I think listeners want to help. They want to
Absolutely.
help artists.
And at the very least, you could put out a virtual tip jar. I've seen some artists do that, and I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I know I've donated to a couple of live streams that I've watched, and certainly most of us are not rolling in money right now, but we want to contribute what we can, and it's going to be tough to price concerts. I think virtual concerts, because I mean, obviously
Yeah,
the
that has
experience
been
is
fascinating.
different from a normal concert.
Right. I've wondered about that too. Maybe a venue promoter could, explain how that's working or going to work. Because I've seen a wide range of of prices. I mean, I feel like a going rate is like $10 or $15,
Mm-hmm.
maybe $20, but still, that's not much because when you think about they were going to have 50 concerts in a year.
Yeah.
They can't do that now,
With a new
with
audience
even a
every
live
time.
stream. Can they get away with, maybe doing three where people pay? I have an artist, Laura Marling, where they did call her one of her concerts. She's doing a concert from London with multi-camera shots, and I know it'll be good audio quality. She's so particular about that, and they called her concert sold out, quote unquote, at 1,500 tickets,
Uh-huh.
quote unquote. So maybe that's a smart way to do it, and then do
Yeah,
another one in a month or two.
that's an angle that I hadn't even considered, which I'm not sure why I didn't think of this, but yeah, when you're touring, you're exposed to a new audience every night, whereas when you're doing it online, everybody around the world can choose to come to that show if they want. So then, if they've already seen you, they're probably not going to spend another $15 to see you again the next weekend. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's an interesting challenge, and I think that's smart to cap it at a certain number of people, a certain number of viewers, so that you can spread that audience out a little bit more and get a few more shows. These are very creative solutions to brand new problems. I'm very impressed.
I can't say I've started, come up with.
Oh, hang on, I'm getting a spam call. Let me just decline that. Oh, I'm sorry.
About
Sorry.
the people
I got a
who
spam
have lost
call.
their lives, but
Hang on one sec. I'm sorry. I had a
it's
spam call come in and I had to decline it, and it paused you automatically. So let me give a quick pause here. Okay, I'm sorry. What were you saying?
it has been a scary time, obviously, and I feel terrible about the loss of life, and it's such it's a revolutionary year on many levels, and I'm hoping that's the case all the way through November. But it's exciting for radio right now. I think radio's poised, non-commercial, especially NPR, music and community, and community stations are not technically all NPR, so that's why I make that differentiation.
Yeah.
There's it's also we're on the precipice of really reestablishing ourselves as tastemakers, and because people have come to radio to feel comfort, to be the voice in the room, to learn, to hear news. This is what happened after 9/11 as well. That is really a big starting point of when non-commercial AAA took off, was after 9/11, because everyone found the left-hand side of the dial,
Yeah.
discovered it, because that's where all the smart observations, analysis, music could be found, not on the corporate right side on the dial as much. So this is another one of those moments people have come back to radio and come back to the left-hand side of the dial, especially being 92 and under on the FM dial, to find that comfort and that intelligent take on things.
And the spread of information
it
too.
is an exciting year.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, this is a private podcast. We don't have to be diplomatic for radio or anything on here. So, I mean, yeah, it's early June as we're recording this. There are riots happening around the country, and I mean, I was at a protest on Sunday. I'm going to go to another one tomorrow. What are things looking like out in Portland? What have you been seeing?
I'm watching from far. I really wish I could go. I've been torn on how to whether to bring my kids or not. I mean, no one can watch our kids right now. We don't want to put my wife and I don't want to put our moms at risk due to COVID.
Yeah.
So we can't just drop our kids somewhere while we go to the protest. I'm really torn, so I haven't seen one firsthand. I really do support them, obviously, if they're peaceful. We've had some really great peaceful ones. Apparently yesterday there were thousands peacefully downtown, and it was really successful, so I'm excited about that. There was violence Friday night and Saturday night, but it has really calmed down. So it's great. I think it's been what should be happening, and I don't know what I don't know if it means it's going to happen all week. We've had curfews here. I think most major cities have the curfews, but I mean we're an politically active city for the most part, so I expected it. I would be surprised if we didn't have protests and awareness to what's happening.
I mean, I can't imagine being in the position of having kids, and I certainly don't blame you for being uncertain whether you should take them, because I mean, the tensions are high for a very good reason, and obviously I go with the intention of protesting peacefully, but if violence happens, it happens, and I can't really fault anybody for wanting to fuck shit up. So
well I just hope it's for the right reasons, but not to get into too much politics, just reading and hearing about it's white supremacists show up to create the violence, and
right.
That's what we have to be careful about, is they're going to take advantage of making the situation worse
and controlling the narrative and blaming it on the other side.
Yeah, exactly. So I've been afraid I've taken my kids to anti-gun rallies and places I felt, safe for the most part. For them, I wanted them to see it. I want to see how thankfully I've taken them to protest so they see how it works. I've been unsure. Yeah. They've just turned 10 today, so they're at an age where they're getting it. We're trying to watch movies and films about the Black experience and minorities in general, and they have lesbian moms, so they're gonna live it. They're gonna live it to some level. The way it is.
Absolutely. I was thinking a little bit about being a kid and what I was taught about the civil rights movement in school. I went through the American public school system, and we learned all about Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King, and they were presented as these great people, which they were, but I think the lens they showed those moments in history through was like, they won the fight. The fight is over. There is equality now. Everything is fine.
That's the problem.
Isn't America wonderful? And I wish we had been taught the truth. I wish, it had been more like, yes, these are people who fought for justice and made great strides, but, it's still not over, and there's still so much work to do. And, I think there would be a lot less shocked white people out there right now if we had all kind of been informed. Because, I went to school in Connecticut. It was overwhelmingly white. I didn't have the firsthand experience to see inequality day to day, and I wish that I and many other people had been told the truth when we were kids. So thank you for doing it for yours.
Oh, well, I mean, talk about a wake-up call. I can't believe it came to that. I can't believe it came to this, but this is our reality. I mean, white supremacists will do anything it takes to keep their power. So that's why they've held on.
Yeah, it's horrifying.
People have to die.
It's
least horrible.
Finally, and obviously there's nothing good about this situation, but what am I trying to say? At least racists are finally admitting that they're racist, and that that is the motivation for why they do the things they do, and why they feel the way they feel. It used to be this kind of like hiding behind like, oh, I'm just economically conservative, or this, that, like kind of mincing words, and now I feel like they're being forced to say like, no, I think white people should be in charge. And, now we know now
Yeah,
with their true
calling
faces.
a spade a spade.
Yeah,
Yes.
now we know
Yes,
their true
everyone's
faces.
showing their true colors, their true orangeness.
Yep. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Wow. So yeah, that I'm glad we were able to talk about that a little bit, because it's such a weird time, and I feel strange like having a conversation that doesn't address it in some way. So thank you for going there with me a little bit. So you're a mom. You've been stuck at home with this quarantine situation with a couple of young kids. You are also an avid cyclist. Do you get to take your family out at all? Are you guys doing any recreational biking right now?
Well, for me, I do it. My wife does it a lot. We haven't been able to go out together so much. My kids don't really love it because we like to go for 30-mile rides. It's been a great way, especially during. So I get a chance to go out for a couple hours, and then my wife will go out later in the day. But it's a chance to go around, especially when we're still under stay at home in Portland, Oregon right now through June 12th. We'll see if that lifts. So during the quarantine, it was a way to go safely, explore around and see how people are doing, like riding around places and getting to be out in nature and just seeing how the community is holding up and what's going on and a way to stay in shape and just clear your head, because if you're in, obviously we've all been in our houses for months. I mean, it's driving me crazy. So it was a great excuse to get out. I usually do two or three century rides, which are 100-mile bike rides every year.
Ooh.
Those have all been postponed for now. We'll see. A couple might try to happen late August or September. We'll see. But it's a lot of time to sit and think. I guess maybe it takes the place of meditation, maybe,
Yeah.
or going to any gym.
Absolutely. I mean, there's that kind of like zone that you get in doing any kind of hard exercise, that especially something that you love. I don't know that I really have that right now. I'm more of a lifter, and obviously I don't have a full like gym set up at home. I've been doing, my boyfriend and I have been doing pretty well with home workouts, and we bought a little bit of equipment before things got really crazy, but we don't have like weights, so I definitely miss that. But it is very meditative when you get into that kind of like zone where you have the chemicals flowing in your brain from the exercise, and the endorphins, and I would like to get into biking.
It's the only
a little more.
escape.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
No. I was just gonna say biking sounds really nice for it. My only concern is cycling always seems a little dangerous, no matter what. Like, I understand, of course, I'm sure you're wearing a helmet. You've got all your gear, but where do you ride? Are you a mountain biker? Are you a road rider?
I'm a road cyclist. You learn safe ways to go. I think, especially since I've been in Portland for 12 years, I've did a lot of research online, following other people on different apps. You can see other routes people have taken. So you learn, well, right now, one of the positive things about quarantine, I guess, is the roads have been super clear. So you can, depending on the time of day, I mean, you really can go almost anywhere and not hit as much traffic. And so it's very safe right now, but that's going to change as everything opens up. Google Maps in particular has a bike option. You know how you can find out how long it takes to walk somewhere, to drive somewhere, or public transportation. Google Maps actually has a bike one, and they'll show you the best way to go to somewhere that takes bike routes. I'm in Portland, so we have bike routes that are a little bit safer through neighborhoods and where there are bike lanes. And there's always a danger. I've been cycling for 25 years in some capacity. I cycled a lot in San Francisco, which was super dangerous because I think I just was a punk rock and roll kid in my early 20s that loved the danger of racing around San Francisco. So I guess maybe this feels much safer here, but yeah, there are risks. It's like playing a video game sometimes, where you have to be using all your senses, and be good about spatial distancing, understanding how far someone is, or listening. You're always listening with your ears. That's why I highly suggest nobody cycle with earbuds or anything like that. Do not listen to music. You have to use your ears. You have to hear if there are cars around you or people or other cyclists around you, and always look around. So I guess you learn how tricks and how to stay safe, and always watch, and defensively, and motorcyclists know this, defensively know what motorists are going to do. You can tell if someone's not looking at you. You can tell if they're going to do something stupid and turn right in front of you. You have to predict people doing things that might hurt you.
Yeah. Have you ever had any like near misses, any scary experiences?
Near misses? Oh yeah. In San Francisco for sure, and a couple times here. But again, people are fairly aware here. Yeah, not too bad. I think I really try hard to ride defensively. I do not just run right through lights or stop signs the way some cyclists do. I mean, you have to obey the rules of the road, and you'll be okay. But always watch. Anyway, that's getting way off on.
Not at all. No, in this portion, there is no such thing as off topic. That's why I established this part of the podcast, because I knew I was going to want to just like ramble and just go off on tangents. What about hills? I'm a big wuss about hills on a bike, and I live at the bottom of a hill, so in order to bike anywhere from my house, I have to get into
it. Right. And,
yeah.
And I always have to go home up a hill. It's pretty intense. So how to deal with hills?
Yeah. What are your strategies?
Well, if you make sure you have a bicycle that can go to a pretty low gear. I mean, I now just have I think like a 14 one, 14 gear, but I used to have a 21 gear because I was so paranoid about hills as well. I mean, you start to build up and just go slow. That's the workout. That's where you just learn to kind of push it. I guess you just get used to it, and your knees get used to it, and your muscles build in a certain way that it's not always horrible. It's not like exciting and feel great, but it feels at least like you got a workout, and it's part of the challenge.
Oh, no doubt. I've done the hill from my house exactly once. I still need to tune up my bike for this year, but I did once manage to ride up the hill. And the problem is the way that my neighborhood is laid out. So I'm at the bottom of this very long, windy hill. It's about a mile, and it's pretty much straight up. And then you go over a bridge to get into the downtown area. And then if you want to go to the Uptown area, which is where most of my friends live and hang out, there's another big hill. So it's really a challenge, but I know I can do it. I've done it once. I just need to like do it a few more times and like condition myself. But I'm not there just
I think that's it. Yeah, and keep your head. I just keep my head down and think about something else, and I don't like look at the top of the hill because that just it feels like it takes forever. Or like with running, which I used to do, they always say like find a point not too far ahead, and like maybe 20 feet ahead, and focus on that, and then you pass it, and you feel at least like you're making these small goals until you get to the top.
Because you're not listening to anything either. Like I am a runner, and like I run up my hills, and I can do that, but what really helps me is listening to a podcast or something. So I just focus on that and just keep my legs moving, and eventually I get through it. But like you said, it's really pretty dangerous if you're road biking to listen to something in headphones while you're riding your bike. So yeah, you just gotta come up with an alternate way to get through it.
Yeah, maybe that's the meditative part. Learning how to get through challenges without total distraction, but going through it and being in tune with your body and knowing you'll always get through it.
Like, did you ever watch Kimmy Schmidt on Netflix?
Yeah.
Where she's like, I can get through anything for 10 seconds. So maybe I'll just adapt that.
True. Exactly.
So you and I have something in common, which is we are both band people in a very casual capacity. You're also a musician. Do you play mandolin? Is that right?
Yes, I do. I played piano, guitar, and mandolin have been like my three main instruments. I've attempted some others, but not successfully.
Do you have a
But
steady
yeah,
band that you play with when you're not in lockdown?
a, a, ba- a band.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have a. Right now, I'm in a project with my wife called the Louder Milk Sisters, which is Louder Milk was the real name for the Leuven brothers.
Oh.
That Leuven was their stage name, but they were actually the Louder Milk brothers. So we always loved their music and harmonies, and I thought that Ira Leuven's mandolin playing was so crazy, insane. That's who I studied to learn how to play mandolin from. So there are a few of us, drummer and main guitarist who likes to do Chet Atkins style playing, and then my wife and I sing a lot of the harmonies. We do that. We get together. Three of us are parents, and so it's something we can rehearse at home, and then play at bars whenever they open up again.
Yeah. Do you have any like steady spots where you can pretty much count on getting a gig?
Yeah, there are a couple of them here in Portland. There's a great place called Landmark Saloon that I just love. They've kind of been a country western or honky tonk kind of bar that we can always go into, and they'll say, "Yeah, play, set up a tip jar, go for it." I mean, I used to be a musician in bands I toured.
Yeah.
Back when I lived in San Francisco, and then even here for a while, had a couple different projects, and used to be in bands. We wanted to be like Slater Kinney or Throwing Muses, and so I've done a wide range of sounds and styles. But the mandolin now is so much easier to pick up and carry around to gigs instead of a 410 cabinet and a pedal board and electric guitar and just
it's the
all
worst.
that equipment.
It's the worst. My boyfriend tours in metal bands, and I've obviously been to a bunch of his shows, and just watching the load in and out is just painful.
That's a lot of equipment. Yes,
so
when
much.
I think about metal bands, talk about amp sizes.
They're so huge and ridiculous, and there's so many of them. What did you think about touring? Did you enjoy it?
Going to, I'm sorry, what was that?
No, you first.
Oh, I just remember the day we all decided to go more acoustic, and we could jump into a cab with our instruments to get to a venue. It was like, that was crazy exciting and ridiculous. Like, how easy is this?
What a great feeling. Yeah, so I don't know if I knew that you used to tour up a bit. Did you enjoy it? Did you love it? Do you miss it? Like, how do you feel about it?
Touring? Well, I didn't have to do it as much as, I'd say, the artists that I work with now who tour for a living, and they've got to do 50 to 100 dates a year. I would probably be burned out on that. We went on maybe 2-week-long tours up and down the coast, or, not go too far. We didn't, the West Coast. So I loved it because we weren't even gone that long, honestly. And it was such an interesting lifestyle to have your day start at noon and end at 2 or 3 a.m. every day. It was so different than the 9-to-5 working world. All the people you'd meet, being able to play music, and it was great. But I think if I had become a professional, I'd have a different opinion.
Yeah. I always felt like, because
I was a hobbyist.
Yeah, that's how I feel. And when I was younger, and I started playing music, I think we all start out with those dreams of like, maybe I could do this for a living, but I think I realized pretty quickly that I didn't want to get that serious about it. And especially now, living with somebody who tours when there's not a lockdown. And I've never like gone on a full tour with him, but I've been on, I've been to like a couple shows over a weekend or so, and yeah, I don't think I would enjoy it. I love to travel. I love to see new places, but my problem with touring is you don't get to hang out in any of those places. You just sometimes you're literally, you pull into a city, you unload, you play a show, and then you have to immediately pack up and go to the next city. And it's like, it's exhausting.
Right, you can't, that's totally, you've got a point. Yeah, you're not enjoying the city that you're in. You don't even see it. I mean, I hear that from my artists all the time. They work so hard. When I really have enjoyed my job being close to artists and understanding the life that they have and what they do, without having to do it myself, and see how freaking hard they work.
Yeah.
It's way more than I think the average person would understand. You're not getting much sleep, especially because I try to book all this promotion for them. They've got to show up at radio stations sometimes at 7 or 8 in the morning, and they had maybe gotten to sleep at 3 a.m. And they've got to do several interviews throughout the day, and they got to do that day after day as well as the show at night, and it crushes them. Most of them get burnout at some point, and they have to find ways to rejuvenate themselves and re-inspire themselves.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, it sounds like on paper it sounds so fun. Oh, you just play shows and you love, that's what you love doing. You just play shows for a living, but the actual playing of the shows is, maybe 90 minutes a night if you're lucky, and beyond that you're working or you're traveling or you're hauling equipment around or you're doing interview after interview. I'm not saying it's not a dream job, because of course it is if that's what you love, but people should not take for granted that a lot of it is not that fun.
Yes, unfortunately. You really gotta believe in what you're doing and not have any question about it, because you will be questioning it when you're feeling exhausted and sick.
But there's none of that if you're just like us and you just do it casually. I love getting up and playing with my bands, and it happens, maybe a couple of times a month usually when things aren't locked down. And I actually have 3 bands that I'm rotating right now, but we all have other things that we do. Nobody is relying on gigs to make money, although it's nice. And it's just all the joy of playing music in front of an audience with none of the, well, at least much less of the stress and the anxiety and the exhaustion.
Right. Yeah. Yes, I feel the same way. I got to have a taste of it.
Yeah.
And I've actually been on radio stations. I've actually kind of put myself through some of what I've put my artists through to understand. I've had interviews in the morning or the afternoon, played live. I even tried a remote session with my band a month ago myself, to see how it felt, so I'd understand what my artists deal with. I mean, so that's been super informative.
Yeah. What was it like? What did you think about doing the remote session?
It's really weird to not have any response. I mean, it's kind of like when you are recording a record and you're trying to put all this passion into it. It's kind of like acting, and you put all this passion into it, and are trying to emote, but you're not getting anything back. So that's weird. It makes you realize how much performance is about what you share with the audience. And you're sitting there worrying if your internet is up and working. We found out later that half our show did not actually go out there. We didn't know that. I wish one of my friends would have texted, tell them we're not hearing you or seeing you anymore.
Yeah, thanks,
and just
guys.
Realizing the technology, all of that stresses you out, trying to figure out if it's working right, if your microphone on your computer, whatever you're using, sounds good. I mean, it's okay. I mean, that's why I've been trying to tell my artists, try to invest in some not too expensive equipment, just so you can really know that something decent is coming out the other end, and do pre-records. It was fine, but I understood some of the pitfalls.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, we are close to an hour, Jen, and
oh my gosh, that went by fast.
It always does. This was so much fun. Thank you so much for calling in and or having me call you and being on my podcast. Is there anything you would like to promote at the moment?
You mean artists, music?
Just anything that, maybe my small audience would be interested in, that you feel like putting out to the world, or if not, it's okay too.
Oh my gosh. I mean, well, I'm always working like 30 different projects at a time. So
Well, tell you what are, because I'm personally curious, because I'm no longer tapped into that world, what are some records that are coming out soon, or songs that are out that you personally really enjoy that I might not know about?
Well, I mean, I've been really excited about the Phoebe Bridgers record that's coming out later this month, and Gordy, who is still very new. I'm excited about the Washed Out record coming in July. I love the chill wave stuff that he does.
Oh, is he back? That's awesome.
Yes, he's back.
Is it still, like, does he have kind of a similar sound? Or
Yes,
has he
exactly.
reinvented himself?
Yes. I mean, so if you're a fan of Washed Out, you will be more than happy with this new record. Bob Mould has a very explosive song coming out called American Crisis tomorrow, and his new record is very powerful. It's coming out later this year. He's going back to his Husker Du punk rock roots, so that'll be fun to work. Leon LaHavis has a new album, and she's just amazing. Her voice is butter. She has a new record coming out on None Such, and I can't even think of everything that I've got coming. I mean, I guess I would say everyone can go to my Spotify playlist, because I list everything there that I'm working.
Yeah. Actually, that's a good idea. That's a great place to go for new independent music.
Yeah. If that's okay, maybe I plug that, just because then I don't have to list, 4, but they can check it out on Dauntless Currents, Dauntless Promotion, or Dauntless Currents, and then dash AAA. But everything's up there. So
wonderful.
I feel badly that I can't down everything. Oh, the Krungbin record is exciting. That's coming later this year or later this month. Love that band.
See, yes,
some
these
good
are all
psych
things
rock
I need
there.
to know about. Well, yeah, that's perfect. These are all things that I need to know about, and I am still subscribed to Dauntless Currents on Spotify, so I'm going to encourage everybody else to go and follow that playlist to keep up with some of the best new indie music out there. So, yeah, once again, Jen, thank you so much, and happy birthday to your kids.
Thank you. Nice to talk to you. We always used to go off on tangents, so I can't believe now here's one that's recorded for the books here. That's great.
Well, I will see you on the Boulder Zoom call.
Oh, great. Yep, see you then. You take care.
Thanks for listening to More Music Please Quarantine Beat. Follow the show on Instagram at moremusic.podcast and check out the website moremusicpodcast.com for new episodes. Questions or comments, email moremusic.podcast@gmail.com. Thanks to DJ Scully, Michael Cadnar, and James Stewart for the catchy theme song you're hearing now. I'm MK Burnell. Talk to you next time.